sure if it was just the heat was on yesterday or?
Shoulder seasons are usually the ones that give you a good indication of the mechanical systems in these types of buildings.
Yeah. Holding off and turning off my boiler as long as I can.
Okay, Heather says that we are up and running and live, so I will call the meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. All members of council are present this afternoon. We have our CAO Deepak Joshi with us this afternoon, and we also have our planning person Heather Stanek with us this afternoon. So with that, I'll call for adoption of the agenda, please.
Resolved, the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated with the noted additions. Communication for information, 5.2, North Eastman Community Health Committee. Accounts and financial statements, 7.5.1 Glenmore Drain, 7.5.2 St. Clements Gravel Pit, 7.5.3 Coville Sidewalk.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowi, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any further additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda for today? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Next, we have our confirmation of the minutes from our last meeting, which was our regular meeting on September the 8th. Can I have the resolution for that one, please?
Resolved, the minutes of September the 8th, 2020, regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Borges seconds. Any further discussion, corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, we have no delegations this afternoon, so the next one on our agenda is communication for action, and this originally went on here at the end of last week as an invitation to attend, but it's my understanding that the meeting has now been canceled, so we will not be needing a resolution, and I believe the way it reads, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Administrator, but I believe that they've now kind of put a halt on it till things have improved as far as COVID goes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I've put the email from them to us
Okay.
on the screen, and they said that due to the increase in COVID infections over the last week in Winnipeg area, we are going to be canceling the October 7th ARM dinner and any future ARM meetings until such time that it's safe to do so. And that's all they've identified so far.
Thank you for that. So there's nothing to do there. The next one is the one that I had brought up yesterday, and I believe that it will be Councillor Spicer that is attending that Northeast Man Community Health Committee meeting on Monday. Is there anybody else who is interested to go to that one? I think somewhere along the way, I thought Scott was perhaps assigned to that committee, but if somebody else has interest in going, I wouldn't be adverse to having somebody else attend. And I won't be attending, so it'll just be Councillor Spicer.
It's a great job. Every time he goes there, he loses lots of info back.
He does?
Yeah,
Yes.
he does.
Okay, so if I could have the resolution, please.
Resolved, Councillor Scott Spicer be authorized to attend the North Eastman Community Health Committee meeting at the Arm of Broken Head on September 28, 2020.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Strang seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Number 6, new and other business. Selkirk District Community Foundation. The Bob Jefferson Memorial Golf Tournament was canceled, but they are looking for a donation there. So what is the wish?
Well,
Go ahead, Councillor
we
Sutherland.
always do donate, and not ourselves.
We do, and we usually have some golfers, and that's one of the ones that I usually donate my time for the day to sit at one of the holes. So I'm not sure that they're looking for a specific amount.
250 or something, or more, I don't, I'm trying to remember what we gave last time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask to what do we usually donate?
Go ahead, Counselor Spicer.
I think we usually send golfers and then you just pay the registration. Is that what we do?
That's correct, yeah. So, I mean, if their golf is about $125 a person, I mean, are we okay with giving them a $250 donation, or do you want to make it a little bit more, or what is the wish?
250.
$250?
Sure, because we would have sent somebody in.
We would have sent a couple of golfers, usually we do, yes, so. Okay, we'll give Heather a sec to refresh there. Okay, if we could have the resolution, please.
Result of donation in the amount of $250 to be made to the Bob Jefferson Memorial Event.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Bazarowicz, Counselor Strang, seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. The next one we have is 6.2, Southampton District Community Foundation, Citizen of the Year, call for nominations. And I apologize that I didn't send something out earlier, but when I was going over the agenda last night and saw it, I thought I should throw something at everybody to kind of put your thinking caps on if there's anybody that you could think of that would be worthy of that distinction of Citizen of the Year. So does anybody have any names that they would like to put forth?
I think since our resident was last year, it's not the accounting committee.
Yeah, who was it last year?
Like,
Blake.
Okay, I guess I did have one name come to mind. And I know that we did get it last year, so probably we wouldn't, but I think we should still put a name forward. You may or may not agree as in council with me, but after putting my thinking cap on, I thought the person that I would submit would be Irene DeGraff. I know
yeah,
that
she has
she,
come on.
well, she's in the south end of the municipality, there we go with the south portion, but she's been there for a number of years, she's very community-minded. She was with the seniors, she was with the daycare, she was with the Narrow Golden Agers when they were around, all those different entities. So, I mean, you know, we could put her name forward if no one else has any suggestions and just see what happens with it. Like that was just a name that kind of came to my mind, so. Anybody from anywhere else in the municipality that has contributed to the community over the past number of years?
Katie Thomas.
Could put Ken in.
Thinking about,
Mark Sinclair.
I think more too that it's a volunteer job, not a job that they're getting paid for too, right?
I believe so.
Citizen of the
Well,
Year.
if you read the criteria there, it kind of,
Was it?
you'll see.
Yeah, who through their own initiative, ability, and effort has made an exemplary achievement in the area of St. Andrews, St. Clements, or the city of Saukar. Well, do we want to put Irene's name forward, or
Sure.
will we just pass this time?
Put it in and we'll put it in, and I think you said we got it, when they want it by.
Next week, next Wednesday, I think, yeah, so. And then, of course, they say the tentative date for the awards banquet is on November the 4th, but who knows if that will happen. It may or may not happen, and I guess if they do decide to go ahead with it, then we'd have to bring it back to council to see if anyone would be interested in going, so. Okay, I'm not sure that we want to put her name in a resolution before we speak to her, so I will just ask our CAO to ensure that someone gets a hold of her and let let her know that her name was brought forward. And she may not even be willing to let her name stand, so I know that happened with a couple of our people that we got for the Good Roads Awards. You know, once the office got hold of them, they weren't interested in having their name stand, so that could very easily happen again, so. Okay, the next one we have is the Manitoba Association for Resource Recovery Corporation, better known as MAR. And the information there, if you could please go through that, Deepak.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Normally in the past, I think these types of contracts have been just signed, and part of some of the changes I've made is that this is a multi-year contract and it should be coming forward to council for discussion and then for approval. What it is a multi-year contract that will cover for 3 locations. 3 locations are Dunning, Clark, and Lebo landfill, the 2 stations in the landfill. And what it does is it collects antifreeze and oil products and other things, and we get our costs recovered through MAR, or MARC, or MAR. And what it translates to is they're going to pay $4,000 or $1,200 approximately for the 3 locations for the initial work that we did to prepare a location for where we can receive these. They're going to supply us racks to be able to put these, and they'll come and collect, and then they pay us $400 per each for the next 10 years.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So, what about our other 2 transfer stations? I don't see agreements here.
There's only been identified for the 3.
Okay, maybe they have different terms or something like that.
Yes.
And if I read this correctly, we just have to let them know before, I think it was May the 1st, if we want to get out of these.
Exactly, May 31st.
31st.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's on a yearly basis that you can, if you need to change. And the agreement itself allows you to change locations as well. So if you decide not to use a particular location, you move it to another, they'll allow you to do that, just with an advance notice.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? I believe there is a resolution to be brought forward on this one.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Resolved, the agreements between the RM St. Clements and the Manitoba Association of Resource Recovery Corporation for establishing, developing, implementing, and maintaining an automotive antifreeze stewardship program, used oil products and materials stewardship program at the landfill, Clark, and Dunning transfer stations be accepted, and the CAO be authorized to sign the agreements.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Bazar seconds. Any further discussion?
You didn't say legal though, did you?
We said it at the landfill, which is the legal
Oh, I'm
landfill.
sorry.
Landfill.
Okay.
Okay, so have a mover, have a second, or anything else? Yeah, you might want to put in the word legal in there, because somebody might look at it and go, where is the landfill? So,
Sure.
thank you. Have a mover, have a seconder. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Legal East. One might think it's
Anytime I
illegal.
can get legal in there.
Just be dumping the streets.
Doesn't matter if they put Lebo in, they don't know where Lebo is anyway. Just had to get,
RM.
I just had to get that, I just had to mark that on there for you.
Okay, 6.4 wireless.
Mayor?
Yes,
I
go
have to
ahead.
declare a conflict.
Okay, thank you for that. Let the record show that Councillor Spicer declared a conflict and left the room.
I'm gonna go and inspect the CAO's office.
Okay,
Chocolates. there's a
very
bunch of
good. There's
chocolates.
Find
chocolate
the
in there.
chocolate.
Right there in front of you in the box.
Okay, the next one is the wireless communications tower, 6.4, and if you could take us through that one, please, Mr. CAO.
Sure, Madam Mayor, what this is will be at the back of the Dunning transfer station. is the intent of this. It was to fill that gap that occurs today in many people, and MTS has been trying to deal with the issue, and they have taken into consideration where a tower could go at that height, and that was not interfered with St. Andrews Airport. And so they had some very restrictive locations that we could look at. We identified various locations, and at the end of the day, this was chosen. We've gone back and forth on negotiations with them. They started off at a much lower amount, but they've come up to this amount, which has been a 50% increase from what they originally started with, and with a 10% year bump. So it's for $9,000 a year, with a 10 years, a 10% bump every 5 years. And so that's a lease for this tower. It'll sit at the back of the transfer station. And because of that, it's a bit of a unique kind of a lease agreement. Some of their concerns are, would they have access? So we have our lawyers looking through it to make sure that it's fair on both sides. But, you know, they want to make sure they have keys, to get access when they need to get in there. So not a big issue, and then they just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any underground issues, because it's a transfer station, that there's no issues with doing structural related work in there to put the tower in there.
Thank you for that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
there's a question.
go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Pertaining to that, I was gonna mention that we talked about it last. Have they dug test holes or anything back there? I hope they're aware that there's garbage quite a ways back. I don't know if it affects them, but it extends.
Dunning site.
It extends to the west a fair bit.
Okay,
So I don't know how far they planned on putting this tower. This is why I'm bringing this up.
right, right.
They may have to, it may not bother them, I don't know, but all I know is there's a lot of garbage.
Yes, they are going to be doing some of the test sites, and so
Okay.
what we're doing today is, because of this, to also make sure that the lease is appropriate. What we're getting is council's approval for the CAO to proceed, and if everything works out, we'll sign the agreement. But
Yeah.
they'll take on some of those levels of responsibility. Very good point, Councillor.
Okay, I imagine that there is a, go ahead, Councillor Vanzelovich.
Do we have to advertise something like this?
I
Like,
don't-
I just know there's a neighbor there that.
To notify any of the neighbors in the area, no.
I think the advertising and the putting up will be a responsibility. First is we're agreeing to a lease agreement, then they'll have to go through an approval to put that tower. As part of their construction of the tower, they'll have to go through all the zoning and the planning side of it. So they still have all their responsibilities. Right now, they're just settling on the location, the land itself.
Okay, it's just that there's a couple of properties in there that they want to develop, and I just.
That was one of the,
Get some pushback.
we felt this was one of the more safer locations due to those lands that have already been identified as industrial. And there wouldn't be much of a chance of changing those to a residential. Now, further west, yes, there are a considerable amount of lands that will be going into residential, so what we're doing is hopefully making sure that we're only on the commercial side. But you're right, there are always concerns about towers.
Like you say, on the commercial side, well, one of the properties that's directly next door is zoned as industrial.
Correct.
That's the one that may have a concern, and then there's the large piece there, I don't know if they want both industrial and residential.
To the north of this, Dunning, south of the site.
Yeah, because north is all developed already. South is not.
Correct, and I think the one south right next to it is RM property. And then and then
I don't think so.
Yeah, there is one RM property in there.
Is there?
Mhm.
To the south?
Yep.
Yeah, there's
No, I don't think so.
that would all be
It's
industrial.
it's that
if it's
strip
along that
right
strip.
along the side of the
It might
station.
not be very wide, but there is a piece of municipal land in there.
Okay.
There is one residence to the west and north
Yeah,
used to be the municipal, I can't think of his name, Debbie, you know, used to be our municipal,
yeah.
That was it, Carlson.
Yeah.
Carlson, that's it, yeah. I don't know if anybody lives there.
Yeah.
They do.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Just a question for our administrator. Is there a way that we could funnel or channel that lease amount into a certain account or a certain area? Within 5 years, that's close to $50,000. I'm just saying, like, if it was ear tagged to go somewhere that could be put towards a specific expenditure or a project, within 5 years, the council that's here that at that time could look and go, oh, geez, look, they've left $50,000 in this account that was ear tagged for whatever, recreation,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I think that we need to do that a little more. I know at one time we did that, and I guess the dedication fees, you know, when somebody subdivides, it's earmarked for certain, so much for certain entities in the municipality. And when we get a kind of a bit of a windfall like this, it's good to earmark it for something.
It's something that came to us, which is good.
Yeah.
We weren't counting on it, but it'd be nice if it could be just sort of socked away and within 5 years have 50K sitting there,
Right,
as opposed to going to general revenue.
yes, yes.
There are options, Madam Mayor, there are options available.
Right,
What I would recommend is that that becomes part of your 2021 budget discussions. Right now, what we're receiving is a lease agreement. The lease most likely won't start till probably next year at minimum.
yeah,
Some suggestions as to what the councillor is suggesting could be done through reserve accounts. That's where you normally would put these types of things and then earmark them for very specific types of reserves.
okay, you have the map up there now, so
If anybody wanted to discuss it, I brought it up. But
right.
I don't remember the address for Dunning for the transfer station.
Well, I think we're probably,
Do I go further east?
Yeah, we're gonna go to.
Right there.
somewhere
there's Dunning.
Yeah. There's floodway, so
Yeah.
around.
it's
It's between
No,
Dunning and
we're going
Donald.
the wrong way.
just Dunning and Donald.
Dunning and Donald and 202.
Yeah, so we're looking at,
No, you have to go back where you were.
Right.
That's where you got there, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go to the next.
Right along here.
right there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, see, there's that big vacant piece that's brown in there, and then I
That's-
think one of the strips next to that is municipal.
Actually, the brown one is,
Koski.
I think they have it for sale.
Yes, it's been for sale for quite some time, but I understand that they want an awful lot of money for it, so.
They come down 100 grand.
So if we take a look at, that's the transfer station here.
Right,
And then right beside there, that's RMS St. Clements. Right beside that is the RMS St. Clements. And then besides that is the next state. So this is the one I was talking about,
Oh, yeah.
right here.
yeah, see, we own those two narrower strips, and who's the one to the south of that
That's
state property? No,
Rose.
not that one, Deepak,
Next
Oh,
to
further
our-
south?
Yeah.
yeah,
Right there.
That one.
there.
That one or this one? This is the other
Well,
one.
no, that's the one that's it's a estate, and the one to the south is,
Rose Bush.
yeah. Okay, so those two are privately owned.
That's where you might get some.
Some further development.
It would depend on how intrusive the tower is. Some of them are quite discreet, like there's
Right.
not much on them.
This one will be a pretty large tower, but it'll be about here, most likely.
Okay.
Somewhere in this back section.
Yeah, so there's still, I don't know how wide that property is, the two narrow strips that we have, but there still is a bit of a buffer there.
The thing about this is they're gonna put one there regardless, and it's better that it's on our land that we can benefit from it,
Mhm.
you know? So it doesn't really matter, I mean,
Well, and I think when they first came to the municipality, I think, did Greg work with them, Deepak, to try and find a spot, or was it yourself? Or Gary?
They contacted me and then I put Gary, we
Yeah.
talked about it at council, and I asked Gary to negotiate with them. They explored several different options. They looked at the St. Clement's Rec Center site, because it has to be in that area. It has to be far enough away. We looked at the possibility of even being part of the fire hall site, but unfortunately at the fire hall site, it was too close to the airport. And what happens is that this would have to be on top of the existing tower, which made it even taller, so that if they were going to share the space. So the fire hall site sort of fell to the wayside, so that then it was a matter of the RM land there. There was a possibility of going on to the properties on Donald there, where there's more residential development happening, which was the old school board site next door to our RM site, was one of the other ones they were looking at. We felt that all of those would be problematic, mainly because of the amount of residential development that's going to be happening there. And the Dunning was the only other one that was within their sort of area that they need to be able to service.
I think it's excellent.
And this is definitely one of those, when I'm driving home, this is where my cell phone signal always drops.
I think this is great.
Oh, yeah, it's
Get
good.
another 20 of them.
Well, and what are we gonna do with the dump, with the site after, because there is garbage there, it's gonna be sitting there, so it's an
Yeah.
excellent choice.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't believe that we had a mover or a seconder for the resolution, so Deepak, if you could read the resolution, please.
Certainly, and if you just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Bring it back up again. And whereas a wireless telecommunication lease tower with Bell MTS has been received to locate our tower on the lands at the Dunning transfer site. Therefore, be it resolved, council approve the annual rent of $9,000 with a 10% increase every 5 years at this location, subject to finalizing a fair lease. And further be it resolved, the CAO be authorized to work with our legal counsel to finalize the lease document.
So every 5 years, there's an increase, or
Correct.
every year there's 10%.
Every 5 years.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Boulanger, second. Councillor Corbis, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Thank you, Councillor Boulanger.
Shares just enough. Well, I think we should get an annual statement.
And again, like they mentioned,
Yeah,
they'll have to
this
go
is-
through the process anyways,
That's
because
right.
that's just the lease, so.
Yes, exactly. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Dutch elm removal. And Mr. CEO, did you have anything that you wanted to add to what we have in our packages?
This has been a standard contract that we have been processing with the province of Manitoba in the removal of Dutch elm trees. It's gone out to tender with several bidders, and the one we're recommending is the lowest bidder. And in the past, as anticipated this year as well, we should be breaking even or making a little bit of money at the end of the day.
Okay, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Just some education for me, I just have a question. They don't do work on any private land, do they? It's just on municipal lands or
Municipal.
just municipal lands?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Councillor Gazarowicz.
well, then who comes into our yards and cuts all the trees?
Yeah, no, they do private land.
Do they do private land?
Well, yeah,
I got two
What?
sitting there right now.
last year and the year before I didn't have any, but the 2 years before that, they took down 19 trees in my property.
19.
And how do they get access to your private land? Do they come and get permission?
Talk to me.
They leave a,
Don't even know.
Do you even know?
Like
That's
you
it.
get,
they say they were there, they marked them, they tagged them, they number them. Did,
Go ahead.
did the office get a call the other day about, Dutch elm? They phoned me, I told them to call the office. The guy, it was a nice call. He just, he thought the arm was getting ripped off because they not only cut, they spray. They spray the
Correct.
pieces.
Right.
And he said that the guy walked by with the jug and didn't stop in his yard, so he thought the RM was getting ripped off. And did not spray all the trees. So he called me, I said, well, pick it up. I said, council doesn't negotiate the terms, it's, call the office.
We used to get paid separately for the spraying as opposed to the cutting. Now it's all bundled together as one price. And so the RM does its own spray. So if we were gonna rip anybody off, we'd be ripping ourselves off.
But, yeah, this is all private. Majority is.
I'm surprised to hear that, I didn't know that, sorry.
Yeah, what they do, like it's, the province comes and does the inspection, then they leave a note,
Oh, yeah.
and then the company comes afterwards and you get a letter before they come.
Every tree has a metal tag on it,
Yeah.
nailed in, spray paint, orange ring around it.
Yeah.
But our contract is, as Mr. Longe, Councilor Longe found out, only goes up to 44, we don't go beyond.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, because, we have a number of dead
Elms.
elms from Dutch elm. I don't want it to spread, but
Right.
unfortunately, I'm on my own hook because the program doesn't go in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I know at one time, and I don't know if this quote had it that way, I remember they talked about the diameter of the tree, like it was so much money if your tree was only 6 inches in diameter, and if it was 10 inches, it was that much more. So I think we tried to get away from that and just had it as a straight amount. Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
Is there somebody that does Dutch elm for the other
Five
side?
individuals? I don't know of anybody.
Those out there? All
Right, but no, is there, since they have the program that it stops at Highway 44,
Right.
like, that's not where our RM stops, like, so who takes care of, like, what's for the disease too?
Right.
Well,
As I recall, the reason I think this program is at a particular boundary was it was servicing as part of Winnipeg, which is impacted by so many of the trees, because it wasn't a province-wide program for that purpose. So what they're doing is creating a buffer around Winnipeg to stop that spread.
Used to be province-wide, no? Used to go to all
Yeah.
towns, all over town. Riverbanks, they did a lot of riverbanks too.
I know in Selkirk,
been
you
cut back
often
quite a
see
bit
on
over the years.
Eveline, there's trees marked.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because it stops at 44. There are other ratepayers north of 44 and they don't get the same
Right.
treatment or coverage, so,
Well, perhaps we can ask our CAO to check into that to see if, that boundary could be extended, even if it was, let's say, to Highway 4, that would take in East Selkirk area
Yeah,
too,
it would.
so.
317.
Yeah, we're gonna keep on.
And I guess that would be an inquiry with the province,
True.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe we did the resolution.
There's also another one coming down the pipe, there's this ash borer. We may be using our ash trees as well,
Yeah,
and that doesn't extend beyond city limits.
All we're gonna have left is Manitoba maples.
my favorite.
Awkward.
The one thing I've learned is that every tree comes with its own disease.
That's right.
It's
That's
just a
right.
matter of time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think you need the resolution for the tree cutting or Dutch elm.
sorry, Madam Mayor. there
That's
we go.
okay.
Be it resolved, council accept the recommendations of the Public Works Manager authorizing the Chief Administrative Officer to award RFP 2020-9 Dutch elm control, removal, and disposal to Alliance Tree Care, Inc. for 1 year, estimated at $42,190 plus GST. Actual cost will depend on the number of and size of trees required to be removed.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Strang, seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, so we are at the Rotary Club of Selkirk, and we have a letter there from them talking about World Polio Day. And Deepak, I'm sure that you can share some information on that with us, please.
don't think I have to declare a conflict on this
Okay,
as a Rotarian.
right.
But as,
Yeah, but that's all.
not Selkirk Rotary Club, definitely.
Okay,
Um, So, Rotary Club is recognizing it as October 24th. They're going to be raising some money to further support the commitment to eradicating polio in the world. Right now, it's at 99.9% eradicated, except for 2 countries, as I recall, was the last time. I don't think that's in the information here. One in Africa and one in Southeast Asia. Or Southwest Asia, and those they're continuing to work. There's an intent of raising this at least $50 million, and that will be matched by the Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation. So what they're looking for is for us to declare it as a recognition of that as a special day. And so what we've done is created a proclamation for the mayor. So in this case, the way that the proclamation is read, I'm not sure whether I read it or if the mayor reads it.
Well, I could read it. Now, it's like we're going to pass this as a resolution proclaiming it?
Exactly.
Okay.
That it's World Polio Day on October the 24th.
Right. I can read it. That's not a problem.
I apologize for being such a large
That's
resolution.
okay. Therefore, I, Debbie Feeblecorn, Mayor of the Arm of St. Clements in the province of Manitoba, do hereby proclaim the 24th of October World Polio Day in the Arm of St. Clements and encourage all citizens to join me and Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. Whereas Rotary is a global network of neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who unite and take action to create lasting change in communities across the globe. And whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, follow high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus, and in 1988 helped establish the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, to immunize the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988, and the world stands on the threshold of eradication of the disease, and whereas to date, Rotary has contributed more than US $2.1 billion and countless volunteer hours to protecting more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. And whereas Rotary is working to raise an additional $50 million per year, which would be leveraged for maximum impact by an additional $100 million annually from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And whereas these efforts are providing much needed operational support, medical staff, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for health workers and parents. And whereas, in addition, Rotary has played a major role in decisions by donor governments to contribute more than $10 million to the effort. And whereas there are over 1.2 million Rotary members in more than 35,000 clubs throughout the world that sponsor service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad.
That's a lot of money going towards.
Oh, yes. That's, yeah. So, having said that and read that, if we're going to move this forward, I would ask that I have a mover, please. Councillor Spicer, Councillor Bazarowicz seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, call the question, all those in favor, opposed, that is carried. And just on another note, and this isn't on the agenda, but I know we got, it came to us last year, I guess on September the 30th, it's Orange Shirt Day, and that is to do with the Indigenous children that were yanked and taken to residential schools many years ago. I was actually looking at the Free Press today, and there's a couple of articles in there, and it was very interesting. There was a lady, I haven't talked to her recently, but there was a gal that was in East Selkirk, that lives in East Selkirk, that works with Indigenous people, that was selling the orange shirts for Orange Shirt Day. So if anybody's interested, just let me know and I'll try and get a hold of her. I've got a Zoom meeting that day, so I'll be wearing my orange shirt that day. So just another little note here. Okay, so with that, we can move on to number 7, which is the accounts. And we have a closed list of accounts for the period ending today. If we could have the resolution, please, Deepak.
Resolved, council approved the September 22nd, 2020 list of accounts, check numbers 202021292, numbers 2022247 in the amount of $268,760.03 for payment.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any questions, comments, concerns with the list of accounts? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, then we have animal control fine to be added to the taxes, and there's the contravention notice there, but I will let Mr. Administrator explain exactly how that came about.
This is one of our first fines that we are processing as directly to taxes. There was a situation where the resident was fined for their animal, which is at large, and they were warned and then they were fined. Resident said, just put it on my taxes. And so it's come forward to council for that purpose.
Okay, any questions on that one before we do the resolution? Okay, Mr. Administrator, you can read this one.
Whereas on July 17, 2020, a violation notice under the Rural Municipality of St. Clements, the municipality, in brackets, Animal Control Bylaw 6/2020, was issued to Kelsey Kasprick, the person of 331 Church Road South, which required a person to pay the municipality a fine of $250, the fine in brackets, within 30 days following the receipt of the violation notice. And whereas the 30-day period expired on August 16, 2020, and the person has not paid the fine. And whereas the municipality is authorized pursuant to subsection 236(1) of the Municipal Act, Manitoba, and subsection 17(5) of the municipality's general enforcement bylaw to collect the unpaid fine in the same manner as a tax may be collected or enforced under the Municipal Act of Manitoba. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Rural Municipality of St. Clements, by resolution hereby, confirms that Kelsey Kasprick did violate Animal Control Bylaw 6/2020, as more particularly set out in the violation notice dated July 17, 2020, and confirms that the fine of $250 as set out in the violation notice was not paid by Kelsey Kasprick to the municipality on or prior to August 16, 2020 as required. 3, confirms that subsection 17.5 of the municipality's general enforcement bylaw authorizes the municipality to collect the collected unpaid fine in the same manner as tax may be collected or enforced under the municipal act, and directs the chief administrative officer to add the amount of the unpaid fine to the property tax bill for property or properties located at 331 Church Road South, of which Kelsey Kasprick is the registered owner.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horvath, second. Councillor Bazarowicz. Any questions? Councillor Horvath.
So if this is for a resident, if I'm renting a house from somebody and I have an animal and something happens and then they chase me to pay this thing and I don't pay it, how do we come after that person and that?
All fines related with bylaw violations notices that are property specific go to the property owner, not the tenant. Property owner is responsible for the tenants on their property.
Okay, so that if I was a renter and I did this, if this dog was running around or whatever, then the property owner would get this?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
If normally we would first serve the
Person?
But if we were unable to collect and we had no other recourse, we'd have to go after the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, any questions or comments? I have one. I don't disagree with anything and putting it on the rules and anything like that, but we're always so particular about using people's names and addresses for any of our planning matters. Like, you never see anybody's name on our planning applications, whether it be for a variation, a conditional use, subdivision. I know this is a different situation, but here we have the owner's name, the location, the whole 9 yards. Who's to say that somebody couldn't go there and cause them more grief when they see this? See what I'm trying to say?
You make a good point, Madam Mayor. We usually avoid the owner information
Yeah,
when it's
personal
application.
information, yeah.
Personal information when it's an application, but
Okay,
when something goes before the courts, it becomes public information at that point.
okay, so
And
even if they were to pursue it, there's nothing wrong with the way this has been handled?
Norm, I wouldn't think that this is because orders are separate from that
Okay.
kind of a situation, because they could also appeal this
Right,
to a provincial court if they wanted to.
yeah,
Now, saying that, one of the things I would like to look at is why we even have to bring this forward as public resolutions, as opposed to, that this would normally be why wouldn't this, if council is already given the authority, do we really need to bring these resolutions?
Just deal with it.
Just deal with those
Right.
directly and put it in through administration. That would avoid the level of public scrutiny that we're,
right, and then, I
Subjective.
mean, if council so desired, you could have it in your monthly committee report or your CAO report that, you know, there was 2 dog fines and perhaps just the locations could be noted at that point in time.
yes.
East Salter or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
It can't go to the roll number,
Sorry?
the roll number on your taxes, like that.
That's where it goes.
that's where it
yeah.
goes.
But that's
That's
a
public.
good question, why not just the roll number? right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Okay,
Something to look at.
Mhm.
yeah,
I can report back on this.
yeah,
Okay.
Because as soon as when this one came forward, that was one of the questions I was looking into
right.
for the next time, so that we don't go through this again.
Okay, so I believe I have a mover and a seconder. And if there are no further questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, supplemental taxes, I believe, is the next one. Taxes added to the roll. And there's a resolution for those. And I believe this is for 2020 taxes and in some instances for 2019. So if we could have the resolution, please.
whereas the additions and cancellations date September 11th to September 16th, 2020, prepared by the Province of Manitoba Assessment Services Department, Municipal Relations, are to be added to the tax rolls, and whereas under authority of Section 326 of the Municipal Act, a municipality may impose supplemental taxes for that year or part of the year stated in the list in respect of the said lands, personal property or businesses. Therefore, be it resolved, the list of additions and cancellations dated September 11th to September 16th, 2020 be adopted, and the Chief Administrator Officer be instructed to calculate and enter same in the 2020 tax rolls, and where applicable to the 2020 or 2019 tax rolls.
Thank you for that. Can I have a mover, please?
Can I declare conflict, because they can go on here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so can I have a mover, please? Councillor Borges, Councillor Spicer seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I'm just looking at the list, that looks like it's quite a bit of assessment that's going to be taxed, so. Okay, moving on, we are at our grants, 7.4, and the first one we have is the East Selkirk Recreation Association. And I believe we all have that information. I think they're looking for their yearly grant.
This is 2019.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was a little confused with that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's 2019's, I guess they were waiting for their fiscal summary,
oh,
which they
okay,
included.
right, yeah, their
But the
financial
letter
statement.
asked for 2020, that's why I got a little confused.
Okay, so this, yeah. I'm not sure because it says, on behalf of the Rec Association, I would respectfully like to request an annual operating grant for 2020.
It does, I think there's a bit of confusion, like says Councillor Spicer said, because if you go forward onto the administration comments, it talks down below there that this is specifically for 2019.
2019.
Question,
Go ahead, Councillor Bazarovic.
question, concern, whatever. As this is their annual grant and the amount hasn't changed, I was a little bit wondering about it too, because I read in the paper that they're putting a new weather in this year.
They got a grant.
They got a
They
grant.
got a grant for it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Selkirk
Under
Foundation.
$10,000.
From the foundation, they got a
Okay,
grant.
so we're covered on how
Yeah, yeah. So go ahead, Councillor Strain.
Can I suggest before we pass anything that we get it clarified first of what year we gave, or this is for
It
the
is
following? What-
2019, they're going to get it in 2020 because they give us the statements from 2019 at the end of the 2019, in 2020. But it is their 2019 grant,
What's their year end? They have a different year end?
correct?
Okay.
So
Or
are,
it's just when they get around to getting it to us.
so are they always going to be kind of a year behind?
Yeah,
I get
that's
that
kind of
impression.
what I thought,
Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah. And that's too bad because they should be getting their grants in the year that they're allotted for.
I mean,
Go ahead,
my question
Councillor.
could go just to Blake to ask that question. If he says they're fine with the way it is, that's fine.
Yeah,
But if he says that he could tighten that timeline up to benefit him, like I agree with what you're saying, they
Right.
should have the funds to use them in that fiscal year.
well, and if you look at the end of the financial statement, the audited financial statement, if they would have had that money in 2019, they wouldn't have been in a negative position at the end of the year. So, go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
I guess though, if we're asking them for audited financial statements for 2019, they're not gonna get their grant for 2019 in 2019.
True
Because their
enough.
year end wouldn't be done.
True enough,
So I guess it's.
They're just running in a deficit.
yeah.
Rolling, let's
Yeah,
call it.
and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
No, and they show this as, in their audited statements, I'm sure they would show this as a receivable.
yeah. Well, and then too, I'm also looking at it, it's not really an audited financial statement because there is the notice to reader in here. So, okay. Did we read the resolution? I'm sorry.
I don't think we did.
Heather, do I have a mover and a seconder? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Administrator, if you can read the resolution for the ESRA, please.
Resolved, council approve the following requested grant. East Selkirk Recreation Association 2019 for $30,000.
Okay, moved by Councillor Boulanger, seconded Councillor Horvis. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, the next item is our fiscal review presentation, and that was, we did part of it yesterday, but I think Deepak has some, I guess he's corrected a couple of things or changed a couple of things, and I believe that we do have a couple of resolutions settled along the way that we will be passing once we review this financial status update. Go ahead, please, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of my commitment was the quarterly, the third quarter financial review. The financial statements have gone through an internal process which provides a third quarter financial status and to address options for council to consider for the remaining budget cycle. The administration will be proposing various strategies related with the current operating and capital projects in order to address the overall direction of council's strategic plan. Just to give you some highlights, cash that we have is a current bank balance of $527,000, and we've earned about $4,000 in interest up to August 31st. I need to be clear that this is a quarterly review, but it's based on everything ending it by August 31st in order to meet the timelines. To compare, the 2019, we earned $13,000 in interest only, but between January, only between January to August. But at the end of the day, there was not a positive cash balance as much as there is this year for the RM. We have been carrying costs related to borrowing through our regular cash account, whereby saving on interest charges, which I'm going to highlight a little bit later. Taxes outstanding for taxes accounts receivable, as they've just been mailed out, we have some $16.1 million in August 31st. But to compare that last year, we had 16.5, which basically highlights the fact that we have some increases in the number of monthly pre-authorized payment rolls that people are falling into. And so, as an example, we had 142,000 monthly revenue throughout the year prior to October deadline last year, and the average was 120K. A difference of about 22K, so it shows that it's increasing. So we had, our average is 142 now, and it was 120 last year. An example also for our general accounts receivable, we have related to our various receivables, we have about an outstanding balance of about $239,000, of which $181,000 are within the first 30 days. That gives us a current receivable percentage of 76%, and 24% of that is within 60 days or over. Highest accounts receivable balance is about $80,000, which is a bylaw legal enforcement issue. And then the last invoice on this account was on March for $416 for tax sale costs. The last payment on the account was in July for $416. Utilities, for the accounts receivable, on the utility side, what we have is an outstanding balance of about $19,000, of which 57% are current and 43% are within 30 days. Outstanding utilities transferred to the tax rolls in 2020 were $30,000, of which 73% is the Selkirk, 11% Sunset, and 16 Lockport. So comparable to 2019, it's similar in the percentages. So the amounts that are outstanding are usually is consistent with what's happening. And Sunset utility billing and semi-annually, Lockport is quarterly, and East Selkirk is quarterly. As further into the general comments, inventory, we do have the Sunset Bay lots, some of which have been disposed of, 9 that have been sold, and but at this point they are at value. I can tell you as of this morning, we did receive the final approval, so the sale has finalized as of today. But this is of course based on, so the cash is in the bank, to say it. At August 31st, approximately $9.8 million were sitting in accrued payables. This includes, of course, the education levies and debenture payments. We have made the first annual or semi-annual FCM debenture payment of $86,000. The rest are due in December. In regards to deposit and trusts, we have approximately $479,000 as recorded deposits in the trust as follows: tax sale proceeds, lot grades for $90,000, tax sale proceeds for $123,000, roads under construction $93,000, roads future remediation $93,000, donations $78,000. Projects for capital projects, we have the Narrow Fire Hall, which was $235,000 overall. We haven't utilized the borrowing yet, but we will be, and that is where we'll be doing some savings. Drainage works, $59,000 for a total overall $996,000. South St. Clements Rec Center, again, goes through grants. So as you can see, all these projects are being funded either through existing budgets or through grants until the time is needed to borrow. As to the brusher and the rapid response units, they're related to the resolutions, and appropriate resolutions for council will be coming to deal with those. Just to give you an understanding, where I was talking about that last year we did have a higher, and that's where you can see in the red line we were at a higher level sitting in the bank earlier on, which gave us a little bit higher interest rate, but we've been fairly steady in 2020. And what that's given us an ability to do is stay above without having to rely on our line of credit that has been in the past. Even as early as last year, we did have a little bit to rely on the line of credit, but this year there's been no reliance on the line of credit. And now we're at the point that the tax bills have gone up, so we'll see the same spike, which is the money coming in from taxes, and then at the end of the year, where we're paying them off to the school boards. So what it's showing you is that we're at a positive level and we're not paying interest in order to operate. We're able to use our own funds appropriately, and that's a good news story for the RM. So what it's showing is the RM is headed in the right direction, or has been headed in the right direction. I shouldn't say it is. General government plan, and so I wanted to cover a little bit on the variances. So, sorry, not the variances, our capital purchases. Where are we on our capital purchases? Again, this is from August 31st, so there are several project purchases that have been identified that will be purchased, definitely before the end of the year. And there are several in here that may not happen, and some of those are associated with reserves, so it's not a major issue. The reserves will be able to carry forward. The others that may not be related to reserves, we'll discuss and see how best to deal with them. As you can see, we have several expenses and capital purchasing, and we're continuing to proceed on those. Then we get into the financial plan comparison. So what was approved in 2020 by council, and where do we sit today? Right now, we're at, by August 31st, we should be at about 66%. We're on average, so I've highlighted 4 areas that I paid particular attention to see if there's some opportunities for some savings. Those are in our general government, mainly intended because due to COVID and other scenarios, several savings have occurred into the administration, general government, which includes council and the administration in there. Such things as indemnities that council is no longer collecting for gives us opportunities for some savings, no difference than some of the costs that were incurring by staff. We're not doing as much training or some of those other things that we were needing that were identified originally because COVID hasn't had an impact. We're also looking at environmental development costs, which are related with some of our planning costs, and then fiscal services, where there were some funds put forward by council in order to do proper planning for this year. So before we get into that, just wanted to cover a little bit around the debt payments. We have the gas tax, the utility rates, the LID, all these are how our debts are funded. So it goes to show that when somebody talks about debt, that we need to be clear. If all debt is not all on general taxes. At this point, we're at about 30% is general taxation that covers some of the debt for the municipality for the various things that the municipality runs. But there's also other sources of revenue, utility rates, LID, that's where the RM is borrowing for and then collecting from individuals. Some of those are requested LIDs, some of those, as an example of Sunset, was a developer request as part of it, where the municipality borrowed the money and then are collecting them for it. As well as gas tax. So further on to the debt, I wanted to highlight what's important to understand on debt. Debt is not always bad. It's a way of all companies that move forward on how to best manage. In this case, the government also recognizes that as our parent corporation, for lack of better words, which is the province of Manitoba, and it sets the regulations under how we can borrow and how we can function through the Municipal Act. What they've said is that a municipality's debt cannot exceed 7% of the total municipal assessment. So as the assessment increases, the capacity increases for what the municipality can borrow. Our total assessment is about $771 million, which means 7% of that is around $54 million is what we could borrow up to. Right now, St. Clement's total debt that was approved last year, or for this year's budget, is at 2.8%. So we're well below even 50%. I can tell you that that's not always the case for all municipalities. This municipality has been doing a good job in managing its debt. And the second part is the annual debt payments. So that is also a calculation that's part of the Act, and it says only 20% of the annual revenue. So again, it's the assessment base that you're creating and the assessment taxes that you're collecting are what are having the factors as to what you can borrow and how much you can pay. So the taxes, based on the taxes that you're receiving, you can only collect 20% of that annual revenue. That's taxes and all sources of revenue. So if you have user fees, they also can fall in there. Right now, the annual revenue is about $28 million. That's including municipal taxation and other revenues. Of that, 20% would be 5 million, 5.8 million or 7 million. And St. Clement's debt right now is at 6.3%, well below the 20% that St. Clement's would be allowed. So this shows that you are in a very comfortable debt position as a municipality. As an RM, you're following the rules under what the province has established and you're moving forward on that. This gives you an idea of the total debt capacity in a chart form and what your total payments are in a chart form as to what your capacity is, what you're at this point paying, and what's been approved. And yet there's even better news than that. So what's been approved? So as we talk about what's been approved, a perfect example of that would be the South St. Clement's Recreation Center. As part of this, the RM has also been working very hard to also minimize its costs by making applications for grants and other sources of revenue wherever they can. So in this case, as an example of phase 1 and phase 2, there were grants that were also established at South St. Clement's Recreation Center, as well as there were works that were land and building works. This year, an opportunity came up. The RM made an application for it and received $2.7 million in the disaster prevention grant, which was the Guns Creek diversion. That Guns Creek diversion included works because part of it was a retention pond, which was part of the retention pond for the St. Clement Center in order to manage the outflow of water from Guns Creek into the river. This we estimated about 50% was towards some of the site works that were needed in the St. Clements Rec Center, and the 50% was towards drainage, direct drainage work, which was increasing the size of the drain and then going and diverting it back into the river. So with that, all site works, because of this approval, all site works within the South St. Clements Center have been approved. And because they've been, or have been approved and will be complete, that means the only thing that will be left in the South St. Clements Center will be just the building. And because just the building is being left, there's an estimated cost of that building, which is approximately $6.5 million, with an estimated, which includes $500,000, which was going to come out of the capital, the private investment. The $6 million, which leaves $6 million, the intent is that that building would only be constructed if we were to receive ISIP funding, which has been another grant application that's been applied for. So a third of that would mean that all we would need to put forward is $2 million to cover our share of that building cost, and that frees up $2.3 million. That can generate a significant amount of savings as a corporation, as you can see. So that is now freeing up debt room for us. Another example is another example of good financial management that the RM has been doing: Narrow Fire Department expansion. The construction of the total authority that was given to this was approximately $1.6 million. Right now, that project has come in 12.51% under budget. So the first question is, was it budgeted appropriately? My argument would be it was budgeted very well, because realistically you're only 2.5% below the actual budget. You had a 10% contingency. You didn't have to use the contingency, and you've been able to reduce the overall management of the construction. What does that mean? Well, that means you're putting $196,000 back into those pies that I showed you earlier of savings. And so what you have now is $196,000 that's increased your capacity for borrowing. And so borrowing, now the only other part was that it was paid for through existing nominal surpluses that were available in the RM. And so you're paying for the project until it was time to borrow through your operating budget. So the money, now what happens is you're able to borrow the money comes back to the organization to continue to apply this. So what you're using is your operating as part to support your capital, which is always a good business sense. City of Winnipeg and all major municipalities also do that from the operating that they're getting from the taxes. They borrow when they need to. In this case, when this was established, and the borrowing is to begin in 2021. So when it was first established and the borrowing was established for that, it was identified that at that time the borrowing would be 4.125%. But now in 2021, when we go to borrow, it'll be 3%, which means there's a savings of $490,000 and $490,000 in payments that you're saving for the next 20 years. Because, so not only have you done proper management, but you're also saving for the long term. So that's a benefit to the organization. And you're also saving $293,000 and $720 in interest, because you went from 4.1 to 3.0. So the $490,000 is important to recognize, because $490,000 is the actual payment that you're doing, that you're reduced by a certain percentage.
I thought you told us you didn't know much about math.
I'm slowly learning. I've always known the general numbers. I'm not an accountant, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn once. And so moving forward, we have the water control works. So the borrowing bylaw here stated that we needed $3.5 million to do all these water works. There was also land acquisitions and other things that were needed. Land acquisition was associated to the Guns Creek as a perfect example. That was identified that we was going to do a diversion. And so from that, $2.7 million in disaster prevention grant, again, that was received this year. Of that, half of that is 1.35 for the Guns Creek diversion is associated here. From this as well, $980,000 have been expended to date out of this project from spending. We have a total of spending in this project that's so, much higher than that. At the borrowing authority that we borrowed on this one is we've done a total of $1.7 million of expending because we've been paying for some of this stuff from our operating, as I recall, as I see here, or total, no, sorry, yes, and what's going to be needed now is only about 1.4 to borrow. Because what we've determined is that all the works need to be done are complete for the $980,000, and we need another 463 to finish the works that were identified as part of this. So council made a decision they were going to borrow so they can get ahead of much of the drainage works, so only 463 is left. That means we're going to be borrowing somewhere around 1.44, and the rest is considered unspent. The advantage, that didn't mean that you didn't do all the works of $3.5 million worth of work. Part of that work was done through your existing operating and from your existing resources as needed. And so you've been also managing your systems well. So what you have now is another 2.6. So not only 2 million, 2.3 in another project, and 2.06 here of unspent capacity, which then goes back into the coffers to be able to use again. So that gives you the good news of where you're sitting, that there's been very good management, which gives you opportunities at this quarter now to take a look at what can you do. So now you get into the GMCC total cost of construction. Is another project that's been out there, that's been there for a long time. I wanted to give you at least a heads up on what the value of that is, and then where are you today? You're only 2 years from paying this off. Wonderful news. Another major capital project that's been helping a major community out in your northern district, and now that is a paid asset. That's an asset that's worth something, and there's no mortgage on it, which is wonderful. And so what we have is a net book value of $2.7 million for the building, and about 2.6 if you look at it for 2020. We have debenture payments about $58,000, or almost $59,000 in payments, and they'll go on till 2022. So 2 years, you will be now complete on this project. So this is a bit of a snapshot where you are, where the savings are. Then we're going to get into what are some of the options and opportunities based on the strategic direction that council has already established. So we get into the operating budget projections. So where are we then? Because of some of those savings, as I said, that there's been savings throughout, what we have is about, I'm anticipating about $100,000 in general government savings. And that's not just from your staffing, that's also contributions from council themselves, who have been frugal in their management of what they're utilizing as part of their addendum. Transportation services, I'm recommending not to touch, or it's hard to predict at this point because the last quarter of this year could be significant, as we know that there are sometimes significant weather events that we have to deal with. So that's a budget that's more closely monitored somewhere around November and December is the best times to see what we can do with those. And then what we have is the environmental development. What we see here is because of COVID and other things, there were projects that were identified for secondary and concept plans that are requiring further investigation whether we really need to complete those or even going to do those this year. If they're not going to be done, there are other things that we could probably divert to this year and worry about those kinds of things for the future, as opposed to being a 2020 issue. And now what we have is fiscal services. What council did at the budgeting this year was, when budgeting occurred, that's when I first came on board with you, council made a decision that we were all unsure as to what impact COVID was going to have on the community, or on council, or the capacity for the organization to be, was there going to be additional expenses? We had no idea. It was an early part of the year, and so $154,000 was put away as a contingency for the council to deal with any emergencies that they may have had to deal with related to COVID. Those, due to other savings, hasn't transpired as an emergency fund needed. Yet we are possibly going into a second wave, so we have to be conscious of that and be careful, but we know that there's at least $154,000 sitting there. Approximately $100,000 net is, and that's a very conservative net of the sale of Sunset Bay lots. That's new revenue that's coming this year. We also have the $30,000 from the Manitoba 150 that was unspent because it was canceled. And then we have another $100,000 on the boat launch, which was specifically identified in one location. Is there an opportunity to look at different locations, or what do you want to do with that? That's part of what we can discuss. So that's talking about your fiscal savings that you have. Then you get into the capital budget projections. So what you have is the Narrow Fire Hall expansion, $196,000 in savings that we talked about. South St. Clements, with grant funding and site works already being done, $2.3 million in savings. Water control works, $2.06 in borrowing capacity being made available, with $463 being transferred over and left into the account so that the works that need to be done that are not complete as of yet, and still leaving enough money for any emergency situations for drainage purposes, still left there to deal with. And that's at the comfort level of your public works manager. So, based on all these savings, let's talk about what are some of the other good news stories, in my opinion. Number one, a great news story is the Water Services Board has given an authorization for an additional $1 million. So in 2015, Water Services Board said that water softener project should be done. The province of Manitoba made a big announcement in 2015 outside, and the project had been being reviewed and designed, and we've had cost escalations. And that's an important thing to recognize. In 5 years, we've had cost escalations going from $2 million project to a $4 million project. That's 20%, that's 18 to 20% is what everybody's been quoting out there. So it's reasonable that that's what's been happening to us. Now we're at the final design stages. Council adopted put $100,000 with the Water Services Board putting $100,000, and we're going to be doing the detailed design, which should be complete before the end of the year. That detailed design will tell us exactly what to do. Understanding that we had an increase in funding required to do this, an application was made this year with the Water Services Board for an additional $1 million support for a 50-50%. That was approved. So that means $2 million of the $4 million is being covered by the Water Services Board as a grant. That means your expenses are $2 million. One was already committed, you needed to do another $1 million. So in order to take a look at our portion of the RM's portion of the $2 million, it was to take a look at what can be done through the rates. This is long-term borrowing in a different kind of a category for water services, and it's anticipated that there is going to be 0 rate increase in order to complete this. A commitment that was made in 2015 that you're going to finish this year, or at least commit to completing it this year and begin the construction. That means something that was committed to 5 years from now, you're able to do with 0 impact on residents and ratepayers. So that's the first set of good news. Second is not necessarily good news, but because we have some borrowing capacity, what I'm recommending is that we need to take a look at this. First, this has been identified by council as the #1 infrastructure priority for the RM, and it's been submitted for ISIP funding. To date, we haven't received any answer on ISIP funding. What I'm suggesting to you is, if we don't hear anything, we've got a significant risk in our hands of not getting this project done, which is your #1 infrastructure priority. Why is that? Because not only that, in waiting for the ISIP funding as to when it would happen, this has never been identified as part of the borrowing until we found out what was going to come out of the ISIP funding. ISIP funding is a little bit unique when it comes to wastewater side, that there's different formulas that come in there. So normally it would be 66% or 33% federal, 33% provincial, 33% municipal. In this case, it kind of translates into different percentages, and the municipal portion is less. So that could be the reason why it was never budgeted for. But what the big issue here is, because of that, there's a need to budget for that. And now you have some room based on other better management. The other is, and the Water Services Board has also, in order to not fall into the problems that happen with the water softener situation, which is cost escalation for infrastructure occurring year over year over year, compounding onto your costs. There's an opportunity here to maybe look at other grant opportunities. So this year we also made a grant application for the Water Services Board. And that was one of the first things that I worked on with Dick Bennett and Greg on, and Shannon, and that application was put forward. But we anticipate we're not going to find that out until 2021 and 2022. Again, risk. So you could be looking at another 20% as minimum, or maybe 40% by then. And so further delays will also, as I just mentioned, could impact. Funding freed up from existing borrowing bylaws that I just mentioned to you could allow the RM to either fund the project fully or at a minimum 50% funding formula. So what do I mean fully? Well, there are multiple stages to this project, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The existing Lockport wastewater treatment plant is the other major issue that's happening. The existing Lockport wastewater treatment plant that's out there, that this project was supposed to help alleviate the pressure on and reduce our risk, is nearing its end of life. We are constantly having increased costs. Even this year, there have been unanticipated costs that we haven't budgeted for, that we've had to deal with. That's having an impact on the utility. And that utility can't bear these kinds of costs because the number of utility users are not there to help support them. So, in order to do that, we need to understand, what are we doing if we're going to do this? Okay, so there is the original estimates, and then we'll look at whatever our percentage costs are going to be. So, taking a look back at that borrowing authority, we had a 2.8% capacity of borrowing authority. If we went just to fund 50% and hope that we get some sort of an approval from the Manitoba Water Services Board in the next year or two, and not do anything, just fund it and wait, you'd be looking at a 2.7%. So because of the savings, you'd be doing a saving still and increasing the amount that you're borrowing. And so what that does, or increasing the capital projects that you'd be doing, is a better term. The other is to do it at a proposed 100% funding. That increases you by 0.1%, still well below your target. And that means you can get started on the project this year. That's on your borrowing capacity. Okay? Ability to pay. You've jumped from 6.3, which is what you were going to be at. If you went to the 50%, your ability to pay dropped to 5.9% out of 20. Now, if you did this to 100%, your ability to pay jumped up to 6.4%. It's, again, 0.1% increase. 0.1% increase. Of the 20% that you're allowed, you're 0.1 of that going up. Now, what I want to really highlight here is that 0.1 is giving you the ability to do a $3.5 million project and avoid a significant risk for the municipality, which is the Lockport water treatment plant. How is it funded? Well, you have to find that not only is it the money that's coming in, where is it coming from? That we talked about previously. I talked about, does it come from general taxation? Does it come from utility rates? Does it come from all of those? So where are we going to find the money? How are we going to pay for this as we move forward? Well, it's identified that payments will come out in 2020 at $280,000 debenture, and it's coming out of the gas tax. And if you take a look at the bottom line here, there is still a positive cash flow for your gas tax. So it's not like you've also used up all your gas tax capacity. So you get the gas tax, and it's an in and out kind of a procedure that goes along with this. So yes, is it impacted? Yes, we are at somewhat of a freeze right now. So this is the contributions that we're receiving. This is what we've been told that they may go up to, that they may reduce. But you have other abilities as part of this. Remember, once this service has been paid for and it's been built, it gets brought back because it's a pipe that's been paid for ahead of time by the municipality, and then you collect development charges for people hooking up into this pipe. You put the curb stops out there, and then people pay to connect into those curb stops, and that money comes back into the RM to use for other purposes. So this is, not only is it a good methodology for paying for the service, but it's also a good methodology to be financially capable for as you move forward. So you're putting in the proper infrastructure to help the municipality grow, which gives you, again, capacity and ability to pay and borrow. So, not only that, because of the savings that we're seeing this year, there were additional projects that came up this year that were unforeseen. Those projects have been identified, and we've got some rough estimates on one of them, which is the Glenmore Drain. I'm suggesting that the Glenmore Drain, we met with the STED Glenmore group. They've identified what were some of the problems. Our Public Works Department has gone down there and they've done the survey, and that drain needs some work done in order for it to function more efficiently as we move forward. So it's something that could be started this year, and what I'm suggesting is with the savings within existing budgets, you're able to do that. That means you've got some capacity to do that, and my recommendation is to move forward with the Glenmore Drain. As well, we had an approval this year that's been a long-standing request from this municipality, was to put in a Colville sidewalk along Colville for safety and residents' use and purposes, and because of that, there's an opportunity to proceed. What I'm suggesting is that we get started on this, begin the public consultations and do the design work so that council can have a clear idea as to the full costs of what's going to be associated with this project. And so I'm recommending the Colville sidewalk also get started within existing budgets. Next is the St. Clements gravel pit. I had, I think from what I showed you yesterday and some of our dialogue, my numbers are a little bit adjusted as to the percentage of savings. That's where my math was wrong, Councillor Vassarowicz, so that showed that I need to stay at the Holiday Inn more often. So here, the initial investigation completed, and the viability of the gravel pit is that it can continue to be utilized. It's further away from the roads, it's away from all residential, and it's further away from everything else, and it saves money. It saves significant dollars for the RM if you continue to do your own gravel operations. So it's important for the RM to recognize its asset, and and to continue to utilize that asset. It's also anticipated that the cost savings are in the order of magnitude anywhere from 100 to 150 or even higher. And this can be achieved in operations of public works, which translates 2 to 4% in general tax increase. That means there's a 2% with doing this puts money directly into your public works. As many municipalities are talking about a 1% tax increase going to infrastructure for public works purposes, you'll be able to do 2% just on this alone. And so what you're doing is that you're able to do a 2% input into it. The benefits would also come in other processes. The RM is in charge of the quality of the gravel that it uses. Now it'll be able to measure that quality of gravel, and therefore additional benefits such as putting less gravel in the requirements of the road because you're getting better quality gravel. It's not washing away as quickly. You're also being able to now use it for other purposes, and you have gravel available for other purposes. So you can use more gravel that you may not have been able to afford before. So not only is it the savings, but it can allow you to use more gravel, so maybe you'll be able to gravel more roads more often. There's all kinds of options that are going to come when you start utilizing this. So it's anticipated that there needs to be public consultation to make sure that what's happening, that you're continuing to use this, that you want to let everybody know. So, and a detailed study. Now, there's been already the study done that the gravel is going to be extractable and on your site, and you don't have to go very deep. So it's shallow process, which means that you're having less disturbance. So all that, what I'm suggesting is that you need to do is start up a study consultation to make sure that you let everybody know what you're doing, and what we're doing is we're recommending that. Additional to that is some additional priorities. Asset management was a priority, so what I'm letting you know is within our existing budget, we're going to be buying some additional software modules that allow us to start doing physical asset management and project costing that'll even provide better service management so that you can better manage those projects that are out there. Not only that, plan for the future. Along with that, we're going to institute a purchase order and a business licensing component of it so that we're able to now get more automated and move away from spreadsheets and other manual processes, which could be sometimes prone to errors. Summer staff extension. We have capacity this year, and in order to fill up that asset management and other projects that are needed to be done in this year, what I'm suggesting is one of our term employees, we would continue to utilize them until the end of the year, and then we'll have a discussion overall in the budget work. What is the capacity and what is needed in the organization? Last is the website refresh. One of the other priorities I think is important is that one of the things we've learned, especially through COVID and other mechanisms, is that there's a need to have a better level of communications with our citizens. We've learned already that we're now publicly broadcasting for our citizen safety and for our council safety, our council meetings, and that's allowing more people to have access to government, which is one of the strategic priorities that council had identified. So we have open and transparent and accessible government available for our citizens, and what this will do is make it much more easier to access, because we want to become much more user-friendly on our websites. And I think there's an opportunity to do a refresh, and we can utilize some of our existing staff to do that. Next is the GMCC expansion and business plan. I've had some general discussions with GMCC, and there's some opportunities for them to be able to now, especially when they're getting to the point of the debt will be paid off, or for the RM, the debt will be paid off on this asset that's being used by GMCC as a community resource out in the Grand Marais area. That not only that, there's an opportunity to make it much more, there's an opportunity to make it a revenue generator as opposed to requiring support on an ongoing basis. How can we do that? Maybe there's some little bit of investment that we can do to make that happen by allowing them to become more accessible. One of the things they've discovered is there's more people wanting to rent lots on their trailer park. They've got a large waiting list. It's an opportunity to possibly use that as a mechanism for them to grow. Let's take a look at this. We would work with them to do a business plan. So right now what we're saying is I'm making a suggestion and we'll go and approach them. And we would use some of our staff to work with them to develop a business plan and then develop a community access agreement so that they can use that revenue to develop more services and additional services that can help to promote activity in the Grand Marais area. Finally, or not finally, but additionally, we also have another destination site. Not only is Grand Marais and Grand Beach a destination site for this RM, another destination site is our Lockport. Right now, there's been an opportunity that's come up, which is that they are redoing the bridge and the deck on the bridge for the St. Andrews Dam. And so that deck of that bridge is planned for replacement and expansion and will probably occur over 2 seasons. As they still have to allow for 1-lane access. The federal government is doing this work, so there will be disruption, but at the end of the day, there will be wider lanes and a better sidewalk, a much more much more citizen-friendly sidewalk that will allow for active transportation. This is the proper opportunity for us to also take into consideration, how can we build a sidewalk that approaches to that sidewalk that will be on the bridge, so that we have a level of connectivity to not only that and other trails, to the floodway, the trail, the Canada Trail and other trails, so it becomes an important sort of a gap that we want to fill. I've had some discussions with the Arm of St. Andrews, who are also interested in connecting both sides of that bridge with the sidewalks. This is our opportunity. So it'll be on the north side of 44, and the sidewalk itself on the bridge is on the north side. So that is one of the things I'm suggesting that we look at for further discussion and planning, and put in for next year's budgeting if necessary, or look at where we have savings from this year to allocate funds in a reserve to do it for next year and the year after. The other is our Clark Road Transfer Station is in need of additional power, so they provide air conditioning and other services so that our safety needs for our employees are dealt with, and also deals with our long-term plan of continuing to use Clark as one of our major transfer stations. So what I'm recommending is we review the options of providing that, and I think that we could probably get it done. I could come with a motion as soon as we get some definitive dollars and costs for that transfer station, and we can have council approve within existing budgets. That speaks to the financial analysis. Thank you.
Thank you for that, very good report. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
2 comments. If I could ask the administrator to print a copy for myself, and if any others want, I would like a copy of this.
I think probably all of us would like a copy of it, and I guess my question was going to be, is it going to be put into our documents like a lot of the other things that Colleen has been putting in, so.
I
But
just,
I would prefer a hard copy.
hard copy, just black and white, does that be color?
I can provide proper color hard
No,
copies.
just black and white, I don't want to waste ink, but second comment.
Go ahead, sorry.
My second comment is, the only thing that stands out to me in here that and I'm not going to really say I have a concern with, but I'm going to say I'm wondering about, and it's the Glenmore Drain project. In my view, I mean, that project came up out of nowhere. We attended a meeting, and all of a sudden, within 3 months or 4 months, we're going to be spending $60K over there to do the drain. Is it important? Yeah, it's important. Is it important that we foster that relationship with that group again? Yes, it is. My concern is that over the last, I'm going to say 8 or more years, probably 10 years, we've been having a lot of discussions with our locals around here, and one of them is the Devil's Creek drainage area. And one of the names that comes up over and over is the Chorneys, who have been asking for 10 years plus to get a little bit of work, and I'm going to underline a little bit of work done in terms of cleaning out the bulrushes, in terms of going to some of those plug ditches and spending some time cleaning them out. That work can be done in the winter, it can be done in the fall. Where I'm worried is, and I'm not going to use the word worry, where I'm concerned is Glenmore is important, but it kind of came out of nowhere, and now we're reacting to it probably within months. So we went to the meeting, we met with them, it was positive, we committed to spending some money there, but all I want to do is bring this up to council to say, let's not forget some of our drainage that we took borrowing for, and after this wonderful report from Mr. Administrator, there's some savings that we made, and I don't want to forget some of our drainage areas that we need to get done. I continue to get comments from ratepayers as to when you guys are going to be doing something for us, and I just want to reassure them that, you know, talk isn't cheap, that we've committed to doing some drainage in this area, and I want to make sure it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you for
Can
that.
I
And yeah,
address?
I was just going to say, I know that area that you're talking about has come up, you know, over the last little while. I'm not sure that it has come up since we've gotten our new administrator, and he may not even be aware of
True enough, yeah.
that area.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Mr.
I
Administrator.
think you're talking around Baconia.
No,
No,
just not far
just
from here.
here.
Okay. If there are additional drainage projects, I need to address one, is that there was funds left in our drainage budget for unforeseen situations beyond what was originally contemplated on that capital program. Not only that, there's an opportunity to start looking at, the intent of the capital program was always to take a big chunk of that drainage so that you can get ahead as opposed to trying to chip at it slowly and not get anywhere. Now is the opportunity to be able to do that type and build it even into your operating. It doesn't mean you have to borrow to do those projects. What you have is better savings, and now all the other projects that were higher priorities have already been accomplished, so these new ones have just bumped up in priority.
And Madam Chair, you bring up a good point, and I apologize for that. It is true, the Mr. Administrator is new here. He probably doesn't know about a lot of those projects.
Right.
And I'd be willing, or I would be willing, or anybody, we can meet with him at a cow and just get his head around what sort has been talked about in those years. So yes, I apologize, it's kind of blindsiding him, but we all know what it's about.
Right, and I guess there are other areas, and I know that this particular one, even though we haven't been at any meetings over the last little while, I know that they have been requesting, much like the people that you're talking about, that something be done with that drain over the years. I mean, just, you know, you kind of never get to it, and maybe this is the time where we have some savings and we have a good public works crew that does a lot of work on their own rather than having to contract it out. There's lots of cost savings. So maybe we can look at some of those problem areas that have kind of not been looked at for some time, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Davis, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think the other day when Greg was in here and we had talked about, I think it was that specific drain by Lebo, where you had gone and met with,
Oh, yeah.
that there's another situation. And I think the direction that's been here in the past, or what Greg had indicated to us, was that drainage was for places that were flooding and where there were problems. And all these ditches that fill up with water and they consume water and bulrushes grow there doesn't mean that there's somebody that's in stress or in bad straits about them being flooded out or whatever. So I think maybe, like I get all the time, somebody's saying to me, when are you gonna clean that ditch out by us or whatever, you know? Like these ditches around this municipality are all bad. They all need work, you know, so.
Go ahead, Councilor Spicer.
Well, the simple answer is it's never going to end, right? It's going to be ongoing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but, I mean, if there are trouble spots, we should be addressing them as they come up. That's not what I put my hand up for. I just wanted to thank our CAO and our staff for putting this together. I'm thinking that it was a little bit of work, not only gathering all the information, but also some thought processes through it. So, thank you, Deepak.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. Councilor Sutherland.
Well, as Councilor Wong brought up, I think I guess we're slowly moving north, but the floodway, we did, a lot of work at floodway and the Mohawk drain. But it's time that we've got to address these areas from around Lebo and Road 80, 81, 80. So I guess we're slowly moving it, but I just wouldn't want to see, and Public Works is doing a great job. And there's a lot of issues in drainage that are being addressed now, but I agree with Councilor Boanjay and Councilor Horbers. We have to concentrate, and it's true. Once you get up to speed on that, you'll see what we've got to start talking about those areas and slowly doing some work there. There's a lot of drains, even though there's a lot of provincial drains. I think we're going to have to do those provincial drains ourselves because they're not going to. One project at a time is what.
Right.
And we've got to start addressing it because we haven't done any major work there.
Councilor Strang.
I was just gonna say, is Jones Creek not provincial? area, and do we contact the MLA, or have they been contacted, which they probably have been?
Well, I think the municipality and the property owners in certain areas have contacted the provincial representatives, again, to no avail, like, you know, and that is, I guess that was a little bit of the problem, where some of our drains run into the provincial drains. If they're not gonna do anything with ours, we're gonna spend money, but how much is it really gonna help if that water can't go all the way through? So I think it's a matter, and I think Councillor Sutherland said, like, if the province isn't gonna do it, maybe we should just do it and bill them for it, or you know, something, like try and recoup some of our money. But yes, it is frustrating that, you know, some of these drains aren't done, and I think we have to have a real good look at the whole area and some of these, not small, because they're not smaller drains, but I guess they're people that have come to us, and, you know, that one is just off of Colonization Road, I believe, the one that you're talking about, and then you have the ones over in, I don't want to say Wackelberg, but kind of in that area. So, you know, I think we have to look at all those areas. Now, this might be a start. We may say now, when we look at everything and when our administrator speaks to Public Works, we may find that maybe it's not going to be Glenmore, maybe it will be one of the other areas, but we'll leave that for our administration to figure out and bring back to us. Go ahead, Councillor
The
Horvis.
previous council made a commitment of 3.5 million on drainage. Okay? And that 3.5 is still there. I mean, it's up to us if we're gonna go and make it 1.4, to take that other 2 and put it in there so we can borrow more or whatever. So we have to look at that before we start putting the pipe in, and that too, what the priority was or the strategic plan was for that. I mean, we're jumping all over the place here, but you bring up points, and just like everybody's gonna have problems with their drainage or their ditches. Everybody, even if it's not. Once you see somebody cleaning his ditch, especially with farmers, they're all gonna say, well, he got his ditch clean. You know how it starts. I mean,
Go ahead, Councillor
I
Boulanger.
mean, that's a good point, and I was gonna bring it up earlier and I didn't. It was about, I would say, I don't know, in our first council in our last term, or the beginning of this term, we said that the 3.5, we would, you know, have it there as authority to borrow if we needed it, and that we would even go as far as not burning Public Works, and we would contract it out. We'd say, here's your map for the month or for the week, go to it. And on the map would have a series of places that contractor would go with his machine, and he would just get it done. That's what we said we would do. And all I'm saying is, or what Councillor Horvis brought up, is that very point. We never did get there, and I'm not saying we're gonna. I'm just saying, let's not forget that originally that's what we thought we were gonna do, was get the 3.5, see what it was gonna cost, give it to a contractor, don't burden PW, get the work done, get it off the books. And I will agree that once somebody sees drainage being done or ditching being done, but some of these concerns that I'm bringing up have been long-term. They've been on the books for years. So,
forever, yeah.
yeah.
Councillor Spicer, then Councillor Sutherland.
For clarity though, I guess there's 2 things that I need to discuss is, previous council had a goal, and that's true, but previous council isn't here anymore. Our number 1 priority is South Glen, St. Clement, the sewer in South End. We've made that clear to our administration. That's our number 1 goal. Secondly, you borrowed $3.5 million to do drainage, correct? But you didn't know you were gonna get 1.35 in a grant that's gonna pay for a large amount of that.
Great.
So what we're really talking about, for clarity,
1.4.
is, well, 1.4 plus 1.35. So you're gonna be at about 2.7 is what you've spent. Some of it isn't our money, but it's still getting done.
Well, it's like winning a lottery.
Yeah.
Wasn't it this council though, at the beginning of our term, with the 3 new getting on, was when we decided on the 3.5, or was
No,
it?
that was
It was
before we
it
came.
was the previous
Yeah, it was
council,
previous, yeah.
yeah. Councillor Sutherland?
Well, we have been contracting to work out. There was a lot of work done on Rebec Road and Floodway. Like I said, these projects, big projects have gotten done. So, again, we just have to focus
Yeah.
on other, and it's, I know, like you say, you know, a farmer sees work getting done 2 miles from where he wants, but that's just the nature of the beast. One drain at a time, you know, there's lots of drains that we're gonna have to brush out, survey them, and then do, just like the floodway project.
Just
You
like that
can't get
road.
overwhelmed with, you know, we've gotta do it just one drain at a time, and not, and we just have to concentrate and start, you know, because we've done a lot of, Public Works has done a lot of work, you know, in the last couple of years. So, it's just a matter, we have to start focusing here.
In the last,
And Floodway Drive was on the books for years and years and years,
Yeah, you finally got done.
you know.
Yeah. Go ahead,
And
Mr.
read it.
O. Councillor Gazarowicz, and then I'm gonna give it to Mr. Administrator to kind of,
Okay, I too would like to thank, on behalf of council, administration and, staff for the effort they put into this presentation and all the work. Because of what was brought up during this presentation, we just did get, probably one of our biggest, most recent grants. And I don't know if anybody's been to the site yet in South Bend, which is another thing that's been on the books for over 30 years, is the new community center. I had an opportunity to go by there yesterday. You won't recognize the site at all anymore. You can't see the site. The berms are all in place all around the place. Wonderful. That's it.
thank you for that. Go ahead, Mr. Administrator.
I just wanted to highlight that considerable funds have been established for this. Remember, what we're doing today is dealing with the current budget and your current capacity. There are still opportunities for council to still do planning for 2021 and 2022. You have to recognize also that the amount of drainage work that this council and these last 2 councils have done has been, for the last 4 years, you've been able to do more drainage work. So I was trying to find the numbers that I had from the financial plan than you did in the previous 15 years before that. So expectations are definitely increasing, and we have to try to manage those expectations. And I wanted to also say that a good chunk of this hard work is also from the excellent support that I get from your administration. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we did the review, and I guess there are a couple of resolutions that have been put forward here. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb because the first one is the Glenmore Drain, and I'm going to suggest that perhaps we hold off on that one until DPAC has an opportunity to speak to Public Works. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. I don't know how quickly they would get to any of this work, whether it be, you know, the Chorneys or in the Lebo area or wherever. But my opinion only, maybe this would be the time to just say, well, let's just kind of pause here for a week and a half, let DPAC get some further information and bring just the drainage one. The other 2, I'm fine with moving forward on them, but the drainage one, because of all the discussion we've had here today, perhaps we can just pause it for a week and a half or a week till DPAC gets some more info. Councillor Spicer.
I don't disagree with you, but I think we should maybe approach it a little differently.
Okay.
Could we pass a resolution authorizing Public Works to apply for the drainage license? That doesn't mean it's going to get done right away, but at least the license is in process,
Okay.
because there's time lags, right?
Correct.
Yes, and I believe Greg said that it takes quite a while to get a drainage license, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
That's
So
what I
if
was-
we commit to just the work that needs to be done to get the license moving, and then we can have the bigger discussion on, you know, the other areas that Rob's brought up and David, and we can go from there.
Does that sound reasonable? Go ahead, Councilor
I
Morris.
just wanted to see one, a good point there, Mr. Spicer, but also, they've already gone out and surveyed this ditch in Glenmore, okay? We put time and effort into it, and I understand where you're coming from, Rob, that it gets pushed off, Glenmore got pushed off, but whatever. But it's a good point, we should apply for that. They're gonna have to go out and evaluate all those ditches where that is. I don't think with fall coming now that that's gonna, well, we could plan for it in the spring or whatever. And it's good to put those ones that have been pushed off, bring them to the front of the list, but I think Glenmore should go ahead. I really do.
Go ahead, Councilor.
My purpose of bringing up Glenmore wasn't to suggest axing it. It wasn't to suggest I'm not in favor of it. The
No, I
purpose of me
know that.
bringing up Glenmore was making the correlation to what we've had and been talking about for years. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not saying to axe Glenmore, don't get me wrong. I have no problem going ahead with Glenmore. I have no problem getting a license, I concur. It takes a long time to get
Yes,
a
it
license.
does.
I am open to anything. All I was doing was bringing up Glenmore as an example of something that seemed to move quite quickly, as opposed to what I've been watching for
Yes.
10 years. That's all I'm
Yes.
saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Sutherland.
I also think we should still go ahead with this project. And you've heard me say, you know, working long enough in the areas, you can never do enough for them. There has been work, a lot of drainage work over the years, I can guarantee that. The Glenmore drain is the main drain. It's been surveyed, and if we have the right weather this fall and the opportunities here, we should get it done. We can concentrate next year on what we've been talking about here.
Absolutely.
I still think we should go through that project because we'll probably end up doing it next year. It's being surveyed. If he gets the license, drainage license, and weather permitting, and we can maybe finish it or start the whole, I still think we should go ahead with that. I really do.
Okay, then I'll pull back. Go ahead, Mr. Administrator.
Might I also suggest that if we went forward with, thank you, Councilor Spicer, that was going to be one of my comments that I was concerned about the timelines we need to get the drainage licenses. If there's a need to do additional priorities, you could also do a friendly amendment to this resolution and just say, that further be resolved that the CAO and Public Works Director come back with a plan for some additional ones that could be done for this year. If we have some additional funding or capacity to do additional survey, we can get going on those things. There's capacity right now, and I've just said that I'm doing this one as initially with the capacity and feel comfortable conservatively. We may be able to do more, I don't know.
Public Works has a lot of projects. Every time we talk to Greg, he seems like he's really up to the top of the chin with how he's going to be prioritizing his jobs. He's got lots to do, so I don't disagree with you, Mr. Administrator. But I don't want to burden Public Works with, oh my God, now council wants us to do all these other drains. To me, I'm just being realistic here.
Right.
If we're going to plan anything further, I mean, it should be something that we don't get Public Works to do, that somebody else does it.
Well, and I guess my comment would be, I mean, you know, going back to the Glenmore drain, Public Works did go out there and survey it. So my thinking now is, if at all possible, could they go out in the other area, and I can't remember the name, that one Shepdale drain I know is one of them, could they not go out there and do the survey, and perhaps we can, you know, kind of do the same process. It'll be, you know, the second one on the docket, but maybe it'll help to move it forward, you know, get the survey done, much like they did with Glenmore Drain. We're gonna move forward and have the drainage license applied for. If the survey comes through, There may not be money this year, but it would kind of be at the top of the pile for next year, for spring of next year.
It's-
The more licenses you have that are approved,
Yeah,
you don't
That's
have to
true.
wait.
Yeah,
that's
because
right.
Public Works is not going to be doing the work on the Glenmore Drain. They just did the survey that allowed us to do it.
He said he was gonna contact.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's something you said before, Rob, I remember you said this, I don't know if you said this to council, but I remember you saying it to me. It's like the guy there by Devil Street, by Colonization Road. It's nice to get that phone call, and when the guy goes out and cuts all that bush in the ditch, and you go there and you talk to him, you wanna help him, right? And this is what you said, and I agree with you. I'd like to help all these people too, I mean, it's a good thing. You want to take that project and run with it and finish it. That's a good feeling,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, and I know where you're coming from on that, and I agree with you. You know?
Okay, so
So
If
we
we're-
have 3 possible wordings for a resolution.
if we,
Yeah, just leave it the way it is.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe that's the best way,
Yeah.
just leave it what it is and
And I'll
then
make a commitment.
you can have
Definitely.
your discussion with Greg and where,
yeah, and if Greg, I guess in my mind, if Greg feels that our PW people can do the survey of the drains that Councillor Boulanger is talking about, I would suggest that they go ahead and do the surveying and then let it fall where
It's
it
good money.
may.
It's good money.
You know, if the survey is done this year, even in the late fall, we can still apply for the drainage license, and then it'll be, like I say,
Absolutely, for sure.
okay,
don't forget about legal. There's no over there.
well, there's that one too. So, okay, so are we going to leave the Glenmore drain as it is, like with the Public Works to conduct the works, authorize Public Works to do, with the costing to be within the existing budget? Yes, okay. Okay, Deepak, do you want to reread that for me, please?
Sure. Resolved, council authorized Public Works to conduct the works for the Glenmore Drain with costing to be within the existing budget.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horbus, Councillor Bazarowic seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, St. Clement's gravel pit.
Resolved, council authorized the CAO to hire Sketlev Miller Murray to review and begin public consultations for the St. Clements gravel pit.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Spicer seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I just would like to mention, and I don't know if council would agree, but I believe that our CAO should perhaps contact one of the residents in the area there and just let them know that we are working toward the public consultation. If council doesn't agree, I'm good with that too, but I kind of think that we should let them know.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea.
I think communication is
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, so if a note could be made to get a hold of the folks there, just to let them know that we are proceeding with the public consultation. And the last one we have is the Coville sidewalk.
Resolved, council authorized the CAO to hire Sketlev Miller Murray to conduct public consultations and design review for sidewalk, Coville sidewalk.
Mover, please. Councillor Boulanger, second. Councillor Sutherland. Any further discussion?
Are we gonna put a price on there, how much it's gonna cost? Are they gonna give us a quote on it to do the design or something? Because now again,
This will be just an initial design review, and they'll just do the public consultations and come back. And this would be within existing budgets at the moment.
so if you come and knock on my door and you say you're gonna put a sidewalk, first thing I'm gonna say is, what's it gonna look like?
And what they're going to do is have some public sessions where they will give some options. What do you like, what don't you like? There'll be some concept drawings, based on those concept drawings, we'll get some input that will then feed to what will be the final design.
Okay, I have a mover, I have a seconder. If there are no further questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So we are down to our bylaws. And I believe we have 3 of them for first reading today. No, actually only 2. Bylaw 17 of 2018, and that is just the Schedule A for the committee representatives or committee appointments. I would ask that that be held over till the next meeting, which is October the 13th, right after Thanksgiving. And the next one we have is the bylaw number 9 of 2020. That's the house numbering. If we could get the resolution for that, please.
Resolved bylaw 9, 2020 being a bylaw of the rural municipality of St. Clements for designating a number for each house along the highways of the municipality be given first reading.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Strang, seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And our last bylaw for today is bylaw number 10 of 2020, and that is the Code of Conduct for Council Members for first reading.
Just a comment on this, Madam Mayor.
Yes?
There were some questions about it, and I think they've been both addressed. Okay, so resolved bylaw 10 of 2020 being a bylaw of the rural municipality of St. Clements to establish and regulate a code of conduct for members of council be given first reading.
Very good, thank you. So, call the question, all those in favor, opposed, and it's carried. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to our communications for information. Get back in here, sorry. There's not really a whole lot here. I don't know if anybody has anything. There's the copy of the news release regarding the new medical services station in Selkirk. And the only other one is the retirement for the former administrator for the Lord Selkirk School Division has been canceled. So that was supposed to be tomorrow, but that has been canceled. If there's nothing else that anybody wants to discuss or share, we'll move on to the council reports. And I'm going to start with Councillor Bazarowicz today, please.
September 16th, I attended the Emergency Services Conference in Winnipeg. It was a very different conference, never been to one before where there's 2 people to a table, spread out in a huge, huge room. Same thing with the lunch, it was the same thing, a lot of social distancing, lots of masks. In the hallways, you weren't allowed to be around without a mask. It was a very good presentation. We had the emergency coordinator from the city of Winnipeg there, did a fantastic presentation. And they had presentations by 3 CAOs from, female CAOs from the southern municipalities with their different experiences, how emergencies came onto them right after they were taken on a new position, and people were telling them, well, we don't worry about that because it's never ever happened here in the past. And boom, within a week they got forest fires like crazy, wildfires, and floods, and things that have never happened before. They had no preparation whatsoever. They came into a situation where they said, well, what's the plan? We thought, well, here's someplace, just don't know where it is. So anyway, that was interesting. And then yesterday, September 21st, we were all here for the cow. We committee the whole meeting, discussed bylaws, budget review and some account stuff, and that's it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Borges,
All I have is the COM meeting yesterday,
okay?
very lightly financial. It was a good meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Sutherland,
Okay, on September 10th, there was a Selkirk Weed Board meeting. Kristen advised us, like, they didn't get the tender approval for cutting grass, like with the Manitoba Hydro, because they rely on that to extra money for them when they're not doing their normal duties. The hydro, and also with MI, the roadside cutting that they thought they do, or and the spraying. So she's gonna try and find some new clients, a new way to bring in revenue. We did our 2020 budget approval. And there was some tenders out for a new Schulte mower and a zero-turn lawnmower, just so you know what's for equipment-wise. September 16th was a MAR meeting, a Zoom meeting. We were happy to inform us that we received a $60,000 grant from Waste Reduction and Recycling Support Grant. This helps a lot because there's no forum because of COVID. And, you know, they have a membership drive during the forum, and they bring in revenue. So the $60,000 was well needed. So that was good news for Mark. We plan to have a series of webinars because because there's no forum, I think. And on September 21st, yesterday was our committee of the whole meeting. I think we were all here, so I'm not going to elaborate on that.
thank you for that, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Strang,
September 16th, I had a capital campaign meeting, and that's where we had decided on for October 2nd with our sod turning that we'll all be attending down in South St. Clements, and that will be our kickoff for our actual campaign. So our goal is to raise $500,000, so at the beginning, but things have been going very well for what we've been getting in grant money, that we sort of switched to different areas, and with the money, we did get money for the $75,000, that's where we're redirecting it with advice from our CAO, that we don't want to be a giver back, to give back the grant money that we are putting towards a playground.
Yeah.
So with the trails, there will be a playground there too. That was going to be something for maybe later on with the building for something to fundraise for. But also on the same day, I had a Travel Manitoba. They had a Zoom meeting. It was their AGM, and they just spoke about COVID update and how they've had more, it's affected them a lot for certain businesses, especially restaurants and hotels, but they've still had lots of people. Camping has been totally off the chart for people getting out and exploring Manitoba. September 17th, I had a Selkirk Biz meeting, and they are just going day by day. Of course, everybody's wanting events, everybody's wanting networking very badly, but everything just as it's getting, and they're still planning for it, but it just gets canceled. Black Friday right now, they've even canceled that. And they were talking about having Black Friday and social distance Saturday, but I think they're gonna try and do some kind of sale still, but I don't know how they're still trying to figure that one out.
was there any talk about the turning on of the lights? I can't remember what.
That's been canceled also.
That's everything
Yeah.
canceled.
Santa Claus parade. Yeah, because they said it's just gonna create, and they were planning for the Santa Claus parade. They were changing it to December 4th. Now, with their group, they may still change, but right now, if the way that things are, that they said with us in what code that we're in, I guess they still relate everything back to Winnipeg, that, yeah, because we're still gonna get a lot of people from the Winnipeg in just not Interlake area.
Right.
So yes, they did change it to December 4th at the time, and they were going to have the parade come, so it comes and ends on Manitoba Avenue and then it would be the kickoff of Holiday Alley. So that's going to be the new way of doing it, But as of right now, that is canceled also. And yesterday, committee full meeting, and we discussed bylaws, public works, and budget review.
Thank you for that. Councillor Boulanger.
Yes, as Councillor Sutherland said, September 10th, the weed board had our meeting in Selkirk. He commented on the hydro contract that never got fulfilled. They indicated to us that the contract was rewarded, but they didn't want to tell us who got it, which was kind of odd because, what was her name, that girl there? Our
Kristen?
Kristen said normally that stuff is publicized. It's quite common that if an award is given, it's just public knowledge. She says they've always been told in the past who got it. To me, I'm Mr. Skeptical all the time, especially with big corporations. I'm thinking that maybe perhaps Hydro never got it done, and what was suggested, and I know we talked about this before, was that if we have issues like this with Hydro not getting that grass cut, and if there is weeds that we're concerned about as an RM, our bylaw can give Hydro an order to cut or control the weeds.
Right.
And that would perpetuate it. That would make Hydro say, geez, the RM gave us an order, perhaps we should get this contract fulfilled so we can get that grass cut. It's the grass right in the field here when you go down Colville before you turn into Selkirk, those two sides.
Yeah.
It hasn't been done yet.
Just a comment.
Yeah,
I noticed they're cutting it today.
the park I noticed, but are they cutting the two fields as well?
Seems to be that they're
Oh, okay.
working on.
There you
how
go.
far
Who
this
is
is
cutting
going.
it? Hydro?
I found that strange, pardon me?
Who's cutting it, Hydro or?
No, they always contract it out, it's just Selkirk Weed Board, and they said somebody else is doing it, but they wouldn't tell us. Sorry.
And that's a government thing. They have to tell you on tender on
That's
that.
what Kristen said, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know why Hydro was so evasive of telling the weed board who was
No,
awarded.
Hydro's not government, is it? It's a,
No.
Well, it's a crown
Crown
court.
Corp.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they're doing it themselves, who knows?
No, they don't got the
They
equipment,
don't
that's
have
why
the
they
equipment.
contracted out. Anyways, it'll be interesting to see who's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is September 16th, Redbird Planning, Debbie and I attended. Madam Chair, I'm wondering if Mr. Administrator could, I never brought it up at the planning board, but if he could make contact with the Executive Director, Jennifer at Planning, and just ask when we are going to have the opportunity to meet with Heritage. The Heritage.
Oh, right, yes, for the
The
digs by the
Yeah.
river where they,
There's been multiple attempts made,
okay,
and they've canceled every
yeah,
Okay,
time.
yeah,
I'll ask for it again.
okay, thank
How
you.
they roll.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's- I just thought I'd let council know that we are trying to get that
Yes, we
solved, and
are.
I want to be face to face with somebody from them, so we, as council, can ask them our concerns and questions and get them
Right.
answered.
Yeah, exactly, and I know Jennifer has tried to get a hold of them numerous times, and as Deepak says, they keep canceling, like they'll say, oh, we'll get back to you in a week, and then, 3 weeks pass, so I'm not sure what it is, but go
And
ahead,
then-
Con,
Oh, sorry,
go, that's okay, are you done?
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
committee the whole yesterday, that's it?
Oh, okay, sorry about
That's
that,
okay.
Rob. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
On September 10th, we had our Game and Regional Library regular meeting. Just a few highlights. So we're still at this moment, 15 people are allowed into the building, which is the maximum they're allowing. And they're allowing half use of the computers, so there's distancing. Boarding is down, but it's not down as much as comparison with other libraries. You must wear a mask when you're in the library. Once again, I guess how you look at it, but there are some benefits. They've been trying to reduce the number of books in the library because it's kind of overfilled for the last few years. With COVID, they've been able to reduce their collection by 4,000 books. The membership is still going up. A lot of the programs have been lost or changed. There's no adult program. Baby time is on Zoom. There's no Lego program. There's no seniors program. They are doing some mobility programs, which means they're taking books to seniors. Some of the income, the library used to get some income from Heritage and Tourism just by assisting them in various ways. That hasn't happened much. And of course, room rental is way down. The good news is, even though the revenue is down, we think we should get the balance this year. We had a budget discussion because budget has to go to the municipalities. I think it's in October. So we made an assumption that by end of summer next year, we're going to be back to normal.
That's hope.
Perhaps.
I mean, I don't know how that's the best guess, I guess, right? So, what they will be requesting and be sending to their administration is the same amount of funding as last year. We do have a collective agreement that's up. There might be a little change in opening hours. Friday night is the slowest time that the library is open, so they're thinking of closing at 6 p.m. until, I think it's 8 or 9 right now, I can't remember. And the last thing there is the Legacy project, which is the murals project. We're still needing some more funding for that to carry on. The other meeting that I attended was the committee of the whole on September 21st with council and staff. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, I have a couple here. September the 11th, Deepak and myself met with Lon, and I think everybody knows the reason that we met with the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, and I think we talked about it. It's for the renaming of Colonization Road, and everybody saw the joint press release, so we're just going to start that process and see how it goes. I too was at the emergency measures conference. I thought the fellow from the city of Winnipeg, Jay Shaw, the EMO coordinator, he did an excellent presentation. He talked about lots of different things, and he also said that the municipal emergency coordinators are pretty much on the front lines for COVID-19. Like, I know even here, Tyler's been going to get supplies for some of the fire halls and for here and for, different things. He's also assisted some people who do not want to leave their houses because of COVID-19. He's gone and bought prescriptions, he's gone and grocery shopping for some people, so he is right up there, and and he's keeping kind of tabs on some of these people to make sure that they're okay in these times. So I think that's an awesome thing. And then he also spoke on the 5 laws of leadership, which I thought was very interesting, and I was going to ask Tyler if he could get a copy of that, because I thought that whole presentation was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Again, our PD regular meeting on the 16th, and Rob kind of spoke about that one. I guess the inspection times, the permit turnaround times were a little high again, but Jennifer did say we were there on Wednesday, and for the Thursday, I don't know how many inspectors were going out that day, but between them, they were doing 75 inspections. So they're trying to catch up and get everything done, and, they are out there. They're definitely trying to get that turnaround time down for permits, inspections, and things like that, so. I guess on the planning side, though, as far as subdivisions are concerned, we haven't seen too many being across our tables over at planning. Like last week we had 2 from the Arm of St. Andrews. I think the week before we had a couple, one of them being from here. So I don't know whether everybody's kind of just on pause with this COVID and not doing their subdivisions like they normally would, but they are down right at the present time. And then yesterday, Committee of the Whole, we were all here, and this morning I had a South Basin Mayors and Reeves meeting and our AGM. Colleen Sklar reviewed what has happened over the last while with the South Basin Mayors and Reeves and Lake Friendly. Lake Friendly has been very busy. We've all been interviewed. There are a number of videos on YouTube that you can watch from some of the elected officials. And the other thing that they've done for Lake Friendly is they've revamped the website to make it more user-friendly, and with her summer staff and some of the staff that she has there now, they're trying to put that big push on water. We have to preserve our water, we have to look after it, because if it's gone, we're gone, so. And that's all I have. Go ahead.
So, if revenue is down at the planning board, is that gonna be a concern for us?
Not at this point.
Not yet.
No.
I guess it depends on how long.
Right, and I mean, it's not so much the revenue, like when we talk about subdivision, yeah, the applications are filed there, but I think more concern would come from the permit side of it, but, I mean, we've had some really big subdivisions, not in our municipality, but that brings revenue into the board, so it kind of, so far, we're not too bad. Deepak, did you want to do yours, or?
Have you done
I think I've done it.
Oh, come on.
You have nothing
I've,
else? You did not have nothing else?
I've
you'd
used
like to
up my,
share with us?
allotted number of words.
Okay, Heather, do you have anything you'd like to share with us? You're good, okay. I'm not sure, we probably should be breaking for supper.
Yes,
Very
supper's here.
shortly. It is here, okay, so then I will say that we are going to adjourn for supper, and we'll be back at 6 o'clock for our planning items. And Heather, if you could please discontinue the recording for now.
Rob, I got
Eternal keeper.
did you get anything from that
So that one.
right there about the Texas pizza up on Brown Brady? Oh,
But Coronation is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
oh, that's what, that's
One
the
kid
capital.
is not-
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think-
Colonization,
I think-
coronation.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
well,
not,
that's-
it's colonization.
Yeah, colonization.
Did you get
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
You get it?
So it's not.